Share your screen. Dadgummit, why does it do that? I hate that. This thing sounds okay. That thing looks okay. It was telling me a story and then it quit. Share screen. What's that mean? Choose what to share with your studio.youtube. Sorry, y'all. I'm still new to learning. A window? Or the entire screen? Oh. A Chrome tab. That's what I'd rather do is a Chrome tab so I can search the internet. Now, how do you... Hey, welcome aboard, wherever you are in there. Sorry, I'm not being engaging at the moment. I'm trying to learn how to use this stuff, and I'm technically challenged. Hey, 6 folks, welcome aboard, everyone. Alex, what's up, bro? Hook Life, what's up? Frank. My bad, Frank. That's my problem, man. I can't find a time when like somebody else isn't going live. It's all good. It's hard to find a time slot. You know what I mean? Maybe Sunday nights would be better. I did pretty good on Sunday nights, but 6 this quick is pretty fast. So let's see how Sunday afternoons have been good too, though. I appreciate you guys coming on and hanging out. Normally 12:30 on a Sunday would be a safe bet, says Frank. All right, Frank. Well, I've been doing it about this time on Sundays. So, you know me and consistency, man. If you've been following me, I work off of inspiration, not off of and my inspiration is not a clock. So whenever I get an idea, it goes to y'all. And I'm learning, though, it's better to you can time, especially on YouTube, you can time those. You can say, don't post this right now, post it tomorrow at 8 or whatever time. And that's actually better for you on the YouTube algorithm, because it can kind of plan what when you're going to be, when it can put commercials out, and all that kind of stuff. How it will know like how long your video is, how much commercial time, and if it's planned out. I think they said to do it like about a week in advance, and I don't have that much material yet. I'm still kind of just using it as I shoot it, really kind of going in real time. That's one thing that helps me, I think, is the real time. I get a lot of conflict sometimes from, whoever out there, and you get accused of a lot of things. Yeah, accusations and the conflicts are always all the same. I've heard them all forever. It's nothing new. It doesn't bother me anymore. Actually, I kind of like it. Actually, it'll make a really good post if you can find a way to engage. Like, you've done well on a post when you're getting compliments and outrage at the same time, because those are the ones that are going to go viral. You can't go viral without making somebody mad. And I don't mean make them mad on purpose. Like the last one that I did on here was just feeding some bluegill. Just threw some bluegill feed in there and the fish swam around and ate it. And everybody's Ecology 102 class that told them about nitrates wrote a bunch of negative comments. Well, I guess they're a negative. I mean, they weren't complimentary. So if you had to choose positive or negative on the comments, there was quite a few. You're going to negative comments in the light of, nitrates and nutrient loading and so on and so forth, which technically is correct, but not correct for the situation that we're in, really, because we know how to measure, and it's all, we're very practiced, so we're not going to let the nitrates build up. That's the part that they're missing, the experience part that's not covered in Ecology 102. Oh, well, Frank's got his issues worked out. That's good. He's got his Chromebook now and his Facebook and his it looks like Frank's got Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, everything all worked out now that he can watch multiple things, and that's good because we wouldn't want Frank not to be here. He's the comedic talent over there in the sidebar. We need him for the comedy. You read my mind, Frank. Facebook does suck. So does Instagram, though. Really, like I got into doing this. I didn't know about any of this crap. I watch YouTube for like when I had to change my alternator on my truck or something. I pull up, 05 Chevy alternator and watch that guy do it. That's about the only thing I'd use YouTube for. and then, well, that kind of matches the title. We'll just go from here and go into it. I wrote the title's called "Who Am I?" The existential question, right? Who are you? Who am I? Who are you? Who are we all? Now it's getting really good traction. All the really just a couple posts are getting about 1.2 million views. So you're getting a lot of negative comments, like I mentioned, and a lot of positive comments too. You're going to run into that, but that's kind of what makes the algorithm go because you're driving engagement. Josh is over there building some wooden lures today. That sounds like fun. I figured today would be a good day to go on too, man. It looked like a lot of rain across the southeast. It's certainly raining here today. Let me make sure that nobody asks a quick question and not a comment through there real quick. Nope. All right. So who am I? That was the question in the title. Let's get this show on the road. 7 minutes in. That's one thing I've been working on. Just going back to talk about YouTube real quick, being the opposite of what everybody else does. I try to avoid that right there, where we've been talking for 7 minutes, but not really giving out any information. My man, Stephen Patrick, Scholastic Gangster. Yes, haven't heard that in a long time. I was known for making connections, acquiring certain things that we needed that were difficult to acquire. And, to give ourselves, let's put it this way, if I was in the Marines, they would have taught me to adapt and overcome, right? But I was not in the Marines. I was at the University of Georgia. I adapted and overcame. Now, for any of you guys who don't know or new, Stephen is a biologist as well. We went to school together. And we were about the only two people who were willing to get dirty at the university. So we pulled a lot of seines. We ran a lot of shock surveys together. We were in Dr. Gilbert's pond management class for basically 3 years. We took it together, and then, or did we not take it? Did we take it together, Stephen? I can't remember if we were in the same pond management class that first year at Georgia. God, that's going back to 1993, the fall of 1993 to be exact. So I can't remember if we were in that class together or not, but we were in all classes, many classes, roommates, partners, and many projects and things. And smart dude about fisheries. If you ever need he's in the extension service, and while we're throwing out promos, if you need any information at all about anything in the world, there's the extension service. It was pretty much Google before Google was there. We were in the same class, Steve? Yeah. There you go. That's many, many moons ago. Yeah, we had good times, man, at the university. I got a great education there. Nothing but positive things to say about the University of Georgia. In fact, nothing's perfect. I know there's arguments about, all that kind of. We can go negative, right? But as a whole, like as just as a general whole, going to the University of Georgia was the best thing that I ever did in my life, because I learned how to do this, and this is what I like to do. So Without that, I don't even know what I would be doing. I don't even know what. I guess all right, we bring it back to where I started this thing. Who am I? All right, I went to Georgia and I went there to major in fisheries because I always went fishing and I had to major in something. So when I got there, me and Steven took pond management with Dr. Gilbert. And in the summertime, I was a lifeguard. So I would go back home to around the Atlanta area and go to this lifeguard company for my job. But it wasn't just going and being a lifeguard. Like we had to take care of the pool. We had to clean it, do the skimmers, do the pool chemistry, pH, alkalinity, all that crap. And then lifeguard all day long. So we kind of had two jobs: maintain the pool as a pool man and be a lifeguard. Well, those neighborhoods that I worked in doing that lifeguarding job all had ponds right behind the pool. It was a coincidence, but it was a coincidence there, definitely. But there's a lot of places like that in Georgia. There's a lot of ponds in Georgia that were man-made by the government years ago. So every time I went to one of those lifeguard places, if I got switched around and I came to a new property with a pond on it, I would tell the president of the association, because you'd be working with them with the homeowners association as a lifeguard. I would tell them that could take care of that pond as well. That I was, getting a degree in that. So I started getting little jobs, little things going pond management wise before I left University of Georgia because of the other job that I was on and just kind of being well, I mean, I guess some entrepreneur, I guess, is the best way to think about that because some people just don't think that way. Some people think, go to school, get a degree, go get a job. But I didn't think that way. I was like, I went to school, saw one class, and said I could make a company out of that one class. And I did. It was real hard, but I did. Um, had to go back home and live with my parents for 3 years, but I did. um, it was tough, but there was enough work around and enough clients around that, eventually I got my own place and kept my business going and I ran it for a long time. But kind of stream back onto the topic of this, who am I? All I ever wanted to do is this, what we talk about here: manage fish populations, talk about fish growth, talk about, different strategies and managing fish populations, talk about, stock different things together and observe it, and all that. And I did do that, but it was this much pond management experience is fisheries. Like not even like my fingers are touching. They're almost touching, like of my entire career, the fisheries management part of it was not much as far as money goes. Like you're not getting paid to do this. You'll get some beer money, some side money, you'll make if you go drop 30, 40 grand on an electrovision boat, you can make a little bit of money, per day running that. But at 30, 50, probably $50,000 now for an electrovision boat at $2,000 a job, you got to run 25 jobs just to break even on the boat. And picking up 25 extra electrovision jobs a year, it's not something I did very much. And now that's just how it is. It's just not this huge, big industry. And that's why I'm here too, because over the last 30 years, if there was, even though that little tiny piece of my experience didn't make me any money, it's engagement, right? I mean, it's all we talk about. We don't talk about any of the stuff on here that made money. You want to sit around here and talk about dredging, digging dirt out of a drain lake? Nobody wants to talk about that. You want to talk about spraying algae, wearing Tyvek suits, gas masks? We don't want to talk about that either. A few people maybe, but not many. So I don't know, man. I do this. This is still an attempt to make this little bit of my experience pay out, if that makes sense. This is this social media experiment thing that I'm doing here for the last 4 or 5 years. is just like taking the truth that I learned at Georgia, my experience I learned in the field, putting it online because I love talking about it, and honestly, it cannot pay. YouTube might not come through. It might not get a bunch of followers, it might not pay. I'm still going to do it. It's not making any money at it hasn't stopped me since 1993. So I ain't quitting now. I'm in it for a long haul. Like I said, this is just an attempt to make something I'm going to do anyway throw a few bucks my way. And it's pretty smart too, I think, because anybody with a pond can get good advice from somebody with a lot of experience, and that won't cost them any money. That's certainly not helping them or hurting me at all. It's not hurting the page at all, and that's not hurting them at all. And that's where it's not hurting the fishermen at all either, because you come on here, you learn about the biology of bluegill, you learn about the biology of shad, you learn about the biology of largemouth bass. That's not hurting you. That's making you a lot better fisherman than you were. And you don't, sometimes people don't even realize it, but that being said, Midwest, welcome aboard, my friend. That being said, I made notes because I could try to be a little bit more organized. First note is, okay, so who am I? What am I? What's a fisheries biologist? So I would classify what I did as a field biologist. So some of the jobs that I had, again, through some of the connections that I made in school and like roundabout, I was about 25, 6, 7, 8, 9 in there. Out of college and working for myself, had the HOA ponds, but I still wasn't like, that wasn't super full-time work because I just got out of college. I had some work, but it was a building a business. And I got on with another dude named Tony Dodd. Shout out to Tony. Tony is one of, again, like Stephen Patrick, one of the best scientists I personally ever hung out around. Tony was a true field biologist in that dude he had all the fish on all the world. I can't call the Latin names of the fish over in Asia. They taught them to us. Believe me, I don't remember them. Steven could tell you that. Steven, write all those down. He's that guy. He can, everything that goes up there, he remembers. Tony was that kind of guy too. Tony was also the kind of guy that could, like, if you're broke down at the mouth of the Savannah River drifting towards the ocean with a busted outboard, could take the thing apart and rig the outboard up to get you back and not drift out into the ocean and have to get the Coast Guard to come and get you. So when I said Tony was a smart dude, or is a smart dude, Tony's a smart dude. It's college, no problem. Field biologists you got to be good at a lot of different things. Like I said, he was from the collection of the data, the identification of the fish, just knowing everything like that clocked, all the way down to being a boat mechanic, all the way down to towing thousands and thousands of miles. Man, I got over 1 million miles trailered on myself, over 1 million miles. And Tony was that kind of guy too, man. He just rolled out. And he works for a power company now, though. He doesn't do, but anyway, Tony would get me on jobs where we would have to go collect fish for tissue analysis for like mercury, or any number of other things. And those jobs are awesome. Tony worked like my old man, 20 hours a day. Is this, just ridiculous. Like he wouldn't stop. And I was used to it because that's how my dad would work. He wouldn't work me like that. My dad wouldn't work me like that as a kid. Like on purpose. Like if I went to work, you were going to work all day, but you didn't have to go if you didn't want to. That's how my dad was. But if you went to work, you weren't coming back. And that's how Tony was. So he was paying me in the 90s like 25 bucks an hour, 20 hours a day. But we were working 20 hours a day, 18, 20 hours a day, catching fish for, like I said, like mercury metals, things like that, for all kinds of weird places like paper mills. And he was juiced in up on high with all those weird kind of contracts like that. I was just like an assistant in the field, because shocking boats are pretty dangerous. And if you don't know, you don't want somebody on it who doesn't know what they're doing and understand how the boat works. And there's also like a refraction factor with the net where it looks like when you put a pencil in the water and it looks broken, when you're netting fish out of the water, it's like that. They're not exactly where they look like they are. And so you need some practice with that. And we would go and do jobs like that and collect. I mean, not just fish though. We would sample like airs and water and soil samples, and you'd have to like next day all that stuff to the lab with like chain of custody forms, so make sure that the samples weren't broken or anything like that. It's all very very organized. But that was part of a fisheries biologist job, not a full-time part of my job though. That was just like I got subcontracted to do that kind of work. But there's definitely biologists in the world who do that kind of work a lot. Another thing you could do if you go to work as a fisheries biologist is just straight up work for the state. But those are kind of tough jobs because there's a lot of guys that go to get those degrees and want those jobs. So you kind of have to be willing to move, be willing to like everybody that I know that got a job out of Georgia for the DNR didn't like work in Athens anymore. They worked like had to go to South Georgia or some other place like some other place that they didn't live, and kind of work their way around for the state before they got to where they wanted to be. But that's a real good job working for the state. But it's also mandatory that you have a master's degree. So you've got 2 extra years of college to go to work to get a government job. And honestly, I don't even know what government jobs are paying anymore. They might pay great, but I doubt it. um, so check into that. If you're well, one of the many people who have hit me up in DMs and messages and things asking about what this is as a profession. Look into it. Look into how many of the students get placed, with jobs, and just look into where you need to be, because what I did was really hard, and I couldn't do it again. I was a young man. If I was to start a business like that, I'm too old now. I couldn't do it, but I would, being kind of hard headed and naive got me here too, because I could have had like easier routes than the way that I came. Um, my business was good in that I got a lot of work, but bad in that I didn't get so much work that I could really afford to pay anybody else. I could only like maybe part-time guys to help me out. I never got to the point where other guys were going and doing the work and I could manage the actual company part of it. I stayed in like this universal self-employment role. The business just never expanded past that point. It just topped out. Um, Part of that was my fault, and part of that's just the nature of a limited business. All right, back to the notes. Oh, back to the question. Somebody wrote something. Oh, there's Shaq. What's Shackleford up to? Says my experiment has helped me. Oh, I'm thinking he means by experiment, he means my little social media going on and talking to people. Make decisions to get pond drained and restock this year. Good for you, Ken. Man, that's good. That is, you're not going to regret that. I promise you that. You're not going to regret it. Just make sure you do it right. And if you need any help, hit me up, drop me a, this isn't the best place for a DM. I'm on Facebook and Instagram too. You drop me DMs over there, easy. Or if you catch me live, you just throw a question up there. Or actually, you could throw a question in any of the comments on YouTube. But the problem with doing that is sometimes they get buried. YouTube isn't the best place to respond to people, but it is what it is. It is the best place to get paid. So that is why we are here. All right. So take it back to all right, I got a business and I'm working with homeowners associations that have lakes and ponds on their properties, right? And I did that till 2012 when I sold that business. And I did kind of briefly, I didn't really sell it. I kind of merged it a little earlier than that. The state of Georgia changed the laws. The biologists at the state used to not be able to moonlight and manage private ponds as a state biologist. That was considered a conflict of interest for them, and they weren't allowed to do that. They'd be fired if they were caught doing that. But around the time that I started kind of tinkering around with other places wasn't a coincidence. It was because Georgia changed the law and allowed every state biologist working for them to go out and compete against me. And I think that's probably a big reason why my business topped out, because I was competing against the government. Um, One of the phone numbers was like, if you wanted a pond consultant in Georgia, there was a list, and then the state couldn't give you any one specific person's name. They couldn't advertise for anyone because it's a state, right? But they had to give out the list with your name on it when you were a pond consultant. And I would say probably like a good 60, maybe 70% of my calls came from that pond consultants list. And when that law changed and they could do the work, the state biologists could go do my job, I never got another call from that line again. They all referenced themselves, and it really hurt my business really badly. And that's when I started actually merged my company with a guy out of North Carolina for a couple of years. That was a great job, just didn't really work out because of the economy, not because of the merger or anything, anything about the business really. So then I was back to work for myself for a while, but then the economy got really bad. And that's when bigger companies go to acquiring smaller companies when the economy's bad and the companies are down. When your income is down, that's when they're going to come to buy you, because those numbers that you turn into the IRS are the numbers that you have to work off of. So your company is worth this when it's really worth a little bit more than that, because the economy's down. So that everything's down unfairly, unnaturally, or whatever. So when you see a big downturn in the economy, that's when you'll start seeing the bigger companies acquiring the smaller ones. When you see the economy up like this and the Dow's rolling and all the news is good and the sky isn't falling like all around you, they're not coming to buy your company then normally, because your total deposits won't be in their favor. For any of you young men looking to start your own business out there. Oh, thanks, Josh. I appreciate you, man. Josh is always around, making nice comments, following, engaging. You guys ever seen this hat before? I got this hat this weekend. Sucker sweet. It is. My dad lives in a town called Rome, Georgia, and they have the single A division of the Rome. It's the Rome Braves, of the Atlanta Braves. Like it's the Braves team or affiliate of the Braves over there, but it's called the Rome Emperors, and they just changed their mascot this season to this emperor penguin, which I think looks pretty sweet. I give them an A+ for their color choices. I'm digging the red and black. I'm digging the emperor. I'm digging the pun, Rome, emperors, the emperors, blah, 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 all that. I think they did a good job on their marketing, man. So shout out to the Rome Emperors. Go get you a hat. It's a cool place, man. Sometimes Dad, I'll go over there and watch a game, check out minor league ball. Midwest says state jobs are great if your state budget is stable. Yeah, that's true. That can be a problem in fisheries, especially because there's really like I said, this is the most engaging part of lake and pond management is the management of the fish, the growth of the fish, how we manage these things, how we do these things, how these things are stocked. I mean, all that information right there drives this. And it has for 4 years off across multiple platforms for thousands and thousands of people. Um, but it's funny because, and I mean, most people probably won't tell you this because they want everything on social media is pretty much fake, and the people are starting to figure that out. But fortunately, we do have a real pond, and we are really growing fish, and that's why I really like going live because you can't edit live. Sorry, I got the itchy nose again. I don't know. I got something going on health wise, and going to see some specialists, and I keep getting these weird. It's like an allergic thing. I just cannot stop itching in my hands and my nose for some reason when I talk. It starts about a half an hour in, and it'll keep getting worse until it drives me crazy. I got a doctor's appointment this week. It affects my throat a little bit too. Getting old sucks, boys. It's not for sissies. Getting old is not for sissies. What else are we going to talk about, gentlemen? Throw any questions up there? So, yeah, goals. I wrote goals. So my goals for this are to put out factual information, field experience that I've observed as a field biologist. And that's kind of where, like, you can go to school and talk to the professors and all the people over at the school. And I'm not saying that they don't have field experience, okay? Because a lot of them have a significant amount of field experience, but it might be a significant amount of field experience collecting stoneflies in streams, or a significant amount of field experience. I don't doing anything like that. You know what I'm saying? There's a bajillion things. There's literally a lotteries. You could win the lottery in the combinations of jobs and things that you could have in science that don't pertain to fishing. And I think that's kind of what helped me here, is that I went through all this stuff fisheries wise, college wise, and then career wise as a bass fisherman. So I have that perspective. And that kind of makes me unique in a way. And just literally the amount of experience that I have with ponds and messing around with fish, that's real rare to see too. You don't see too many, like when we were in school, like you had the book knowledge, you had all the ponds that had been stocked and drained, and you could read the studies, but you weren't usually actually doing the draining and stocking. And I don't know, it's almost like a different form of learning, I guess, because when you read it in a book, right? You say you do this, and okay, it sets into your brain one way. All right, that's factual information, and it sets into. But when you take that information and then go out into the field, and it's all those little minor details to make those major things happen, and that's the thing that books can't summarize, is all those minor details that you're going to encounter in the field that are ever changing, never the same. Um, Field experience is different than college experience, especially when you're doing it for a living. When you're in the field every single day of the week. Um, it gives you, well, I hope that I can articulate that experience into something that people won't doubt as much, because obviously you can't just say, I went to college and this is how it is. Everything they taught me in college is exactly right. I couldn't disprove one thing in 30 years of working on ponds that they said down at University of Georgia that was wrong, and neither can anybody else who's ever studied it. That's what makes it science. It's right, right? But in this country, That doesn't matter. You know what matters is how many numbers are beside my name up here at the top of this. Right now, there's 6,500. Maybe one day there'll be 65,000. I need 6.5 million. Now I'm making a difference. Okay, now I feel like for the first time in 30 years, I'm doing something, and it didn't have anything to do with money right now. Like I said, we're trying to use this to make money, but forget about the money. For the first time in 30 years, I feel like I'm doing something that actually matters. Just actually making a difference. Yeah, I could go out there and get a job spraying ponds tomorrow and spray a bunch of ponds and come home and pile this money up. We can talk about that, right? Great. Whoopity doo. All right, I made a bunch of money. All right, I can bet on the horses, make a bunch of money. I can win a car tournament, make a bunch of money. I can do a lot of things and make a bunch of money, right? But that ain't making a difference. All right, that pile of money ain't doing nothing. And at the end of the day, when you're laying there dead on top of your pile of money, I'm not living my life that way. I'm doing what I want to do as long as hard as I can do it. And this is it. I mean, this is me, you know, and this is how I've morphed myself. And and thank you for watching me try to struggle through all this technology because I'm terrible at it. But this is what this is morphed into 30 years in. This is who I am now, you know? And like I said, I feel like I'm actually making a difference. So go get all the money you want to get. All right. I'll take it, but I don't need any of it. Don't need a dime. Won't quit ever till I'm dead. Frank wants me to come to Canada. That's a no-go, Frank. In my book, ice fishing is worse than the C word. No way. Those two words shouldn't even be in the same sentence together. Ice and fishing. Where I live, no ice. Never been any ice here. There's no ice here. If you want ice, goes in tea, right? You want maybe some water. You want some ice and some water, something like that. But not all across the surface of the lake. No, we don't do that here. Drew wants to do an update. Okay, Drew, we'll do an update on that. Let me roll back up here to Midwest. It says his counterpart at the state capitol, he stayed on staff. Okay. When I'm not sure what it.gov from, that might be a typo or something, but somebody became governor from Illinois. He kept his job. He became director of the DNR. Oh man, that's a good DNR job. Hell yeah, dude. I want to be the director. I can direct. Go that way. Go that way. See there? I'm a natural. Okay. Oh, so Midwest I see where we're going with this Midwest. So you're saying that was your job your colleague took, and then he became, I see. And then you have been yeah, but then you wouldn't be what you're doing now, man. And I know you like what you do. Midwest is a lawyer. Or you could be a lieutenant governor. Okay, well, maybe you screwed up. Nah, I'm just kidding, man. At the end of the day, dude, I've had some deaths, getting to that 50 years old. I'm going to be 51 soon, man. And I'm proud of every year I'm here. I feel like I'm free rolling, life I've led and the things that have happened and just everything. Like I'm just trying to be a happy, positive person and like help everybody around me and not be negative. And that could be a hard thing to do online. I just try to absorb that negativity and make it energy and turn it into positivity. And psychologically, that can be a battle sometimes. It happened to me on that one post that blew up. It was at like 700,000 views. And I try to respond to everyone that types, no matter what they type, unless it's just like sometimes. I mean, there's a few of them that you just pop a thumbs up on. You just go, okay, because not sure if that person's firing on all cylinders on those kind of quotes and those kind of things. I don't mess with. Anybody who kind of comes across like mental health issue wise, man, I'm not trying to harsh that dude's mellow either. You know what I mean? I don't want him to leave with any negativity. I want positivity. So we'll just thumbs up some of those comments. But 700,000 people view. Well, then you go back. I started breaking it down, because I felt overwhelmed in negativity. 700,000 views at the time, 700 comments at the time. Like, okay, that's an interesting correlation, right? There's a certain percentage of comments to views, I'm sure, for everybody. And on every post it's different. But on this particular, that's what it was. 20 something thousand likes and like 700 comments. So I got to thinking about it. And I was like, out of 700 comments, probably like, I don't know, half of them were negative. So 350. So when you look at 700,000 people saw your message and 350 had something negative to say about it. And like I said, some portion of that 350 was mentally deranged. It changed the way that I was looking. I wasn't overwhelmed in negativity anymore because I changed my perception with statistics, right? I looked at the numbers and I was like, oh, I see. Okay. So it seems like there's a lot going on here, but there's not even that much, That's exactly how fisheries management works too. We use measurements like that. We use statistics in that manner. I'll measure the fish to tell me what's going on. I'll use a statistical analysis to give me a sample of a few things to give me an idea about what's going on with the whole. Okay, so that's what's part of being a biologist is. And I've seen this before too, where everybody goes to college, everybody goes to fisheries college is obviously at fisheries college. So we're all there, and like I said, I did 3 years on the pond class thing. I was kind of half-ass TA, not an official TA, but I always went to the shocking jobs. And like I said, me and Stephen Patrick were the only ones that would run the boat and pull any nets and actually get wet or dirty. So they needed us badly. But that was a rewarding experience in there. We got so much field experience with Dr. Gilbert before I ever stepped out of the university. So much field experience, invaluable field experience that I see now that kids at college aren't, leaving college with. Oops, I'm gonna spill my water. So that's another positive thing I can take out of this is all the kids that I talk to at the schools, at maybe this American Fisheries Society or whatever. I've been to, I've talked to Zoom wise, I haven't actually physically been there, but like Syracuse, Texas A&M, also another school too. I did. Geez, I can't remember it now. Sorry, whoever you are. I've done 3 colleges. Why can't I remember it? Anyway, the kids can take that field experience, that me and Steven got and that I got working all those years, and then they can use it. They can, and it not be, I don't want to say lost, but they can be better at their jobs, wherever they go. And whenever somebody comes up to them, if they're working as a fisheries biologist and they go, well, I don't manage ponds, but I did read this once and know where to go to find something to give somebody the right information. That's what it's about, man. All right. Midwest is going to talk irony. Let's talk about irony. The governor was so unpopular The guy who became the director of Illinois DNR was unable to be hired anywhere, and at the end of that administration, he had to move to Michigan. Oh, well, there's always that. If you do such a bad job, there goes Frank again. I like old Frank, man. He makes me laugh. That's exactly right. I'm not a fisheries biologist. I just play one on TV. No, we got lucky, boys. We could have gone for years. Because literally, like, I mean, do you see me stocking a bunch of new ponds? Oh, look, here's a pond we're going to stock, just like Sugar Hill Outdoors this week. And here's the new genetic strategy. Instead of doing half and half, we're going to do some new genetics, and we're going to stock this pond this with, in a different manner. And next week, we're going to stock this new pond in this manner. Do you see me doing that? No. There's a reason why you don't. Because nobody drains ponds and nobody builds ponds anymore. Nobody will drain their pond. You can't talk somebody into that. That is not happening. And to actually fix it so they can get some really good results, they're not doing that. They want to spin their tires. And as far as new ponds go, well, now you just run into what's called environmental law. And back in the 50s, when they built all those ponds in Georgia, what they did was bulldoze a bunch of high quality, what's now called high quality Piedmont region wetland. You boys have heard of wetlands before, right? Well, let me define a wetland for you. Anywhere a deer pees 2 times is pretty much a wetland. It doesn't have to be standing in a puddle of water to be considered a wetland. It just has to be wet enough. And to determine whether it's a wetland or not is called a wetland delineation. And I've actually done a few. So what you do is you walk out into the woods and you look at all the plants. Okay. So certain plants grow in certain soil types, right? And where you start seeing plants that only grow in wet soil, that's where your wetlands line starts. And that's what a wetland delineation means. This is the line. We're going to draw a line on this map, and this is where the wetland starts. That's where it stops. There's a line. So that's what a wetland delineation is. So you won't be anywhere near the stream, because the stream sometimes when it rains will come up and get out of the banks, and it'll go flood over there, right? It'll go up the bank up into the floodplain. Okay, the edge of the floodplain is where the wetland starts, over there. And the plants aren't the only way you test it, because when water gets up into the soil and then down, then up into the soil, then down, it changes the soil. So then you take a soil test and you compare, okay, so we've got these kinds of plants, and we've got this kind of soil, and maybe we got this much moisture, and we got all these other factors and things like that. But there's many, many things that are measured, right, to determine that delineation line, where this wetland starts and stops. And now I hear people say it. I mean, they still say it, like on Facebook and stuff. Oh yeah, I got this new property with this stream going. I'm going to put me a lake right there. And I'm like, no, you're not. I don't know what state you're in, and it changes from place to place, and everybody, is different. But my money's on no, you ain't. Not when you see the check. Not when you see the check, you're going to have to cut to do that, just to get the permission from the state to do it. If you want to put a lake in a wetland, you can do it. You just have to pay the state, and that's called a remediation fee, and it's $30,000 per acre. So if you say you're displacing 10 acres of water to build your 10 acres of wetland to build your 10-acre pond, and it's all on wetland, you owe the state 300,000 before you ever put a bulldozer out there. Now you can dig on your own property. Welcome to America. Okay, 1996 was Josh's first Braves game. Man, I always lived around Atlanta, and they used to take us when we did Little League, man. One time we got to play on the field, but they would have the county that I lived in was called Forsyth County. when I was a real little guy, and they'd have Forsyth County Day down at the stadium, so that the seats would be real cheap for the parents and all, and we get to go down there and look at the stadium and do all that. And so I've been down. That was Atlanta Fulton County Stadium back then, man. That stadium gone, but yeah, I've been around the Braves a long time. That's cool. You like the Braves, man? I don't see anything on there we need to touch on too much. How far are we in? We're about an hour in. And that's the funny thing too, man. I figured this page would be me and like, or how many people we got today? 6 people. I thought it would be me and 6 dudes with ponds who've been struggling, trying to manage ponds. You see any dudes that manage ponds don't even come in here yet. So I promise it'll get more entertaining when we have more live questions. That's where I like to exist, man, where it's real in the field and where we're doing real work on real jobs and talking about real things, not talking about something that we think we learned in a book or online somewhere. Look out for threatened and endangered. Yes. Yes. It's a good point, Midwest. Threatened and endangered species. You can lose dominion over your own property. You can. I have seen it. I have seen guys go, hey, you know what? I am not going to go get any of those county permits to build my pond. I'm just going to go down in there and build a pond. And nobody can see the pond from the road, so nobody will ever know there's a pond there. Yeah. Well, a few years ago, they invented these things called airplanes. And if you pay attention, you'll see little airplanes flying around all the time. Some of those planes are surveyors that work for the county to make sure you're not doing things just like that. So there's a news flash for anybody who thinks that. And I hope you made it 52 minutes into this podcast before you learn that. Because if you build a dam across a stream without permission and that dam blows out, you owe the EPA $50,000 a day until you get all that dirt back out of that stream and return it back to its original condition. So if you think them boys are playing even a little tiny bit, they're not. I've even been places where there was a pond up top and a pond down low, right? And because of the rules of the state and the rules of the town too, you got city rules, state rules. Everywhere you live are all different. So in Georgia, this wasn't in Georgia. I'm not going to name where it was because it doesn't matter. But in Georgia, like if you want a pond to manage, we just talked about, you're not building it. Forget that. But if you buy a property that already has a pond on it, you can drain it, you can fix the dam, you can fill it back up. You can repair an existing pond in Georgia, and it's not that big of a hassle. You get it right, get fish growing, just like we got 2 pounds a year in Sugar Hill Outdoors. You'll have your own Sugar Hill Outdoors in your own backyard, and you won't have to go anywhere to go fishing because you'll be at the best place to go fishing will be your backyard. But this, like, I'm the one guy, the one particular guy I'm thinking about too, just so we have a frame of reference. This man played second base for the San Francisco Giants. Okay. And he couldn't get, he'll get the pond. The pond dam had broken because the pond drain had failed because it had been built a long time ago and it was just time to fix it. But it had been broken. This was before the guy bought the property. It had been broken for so long that the rules say that you have to let it go back. You can't repair it anymore in where he lived. So he bought the property thinking he was going to have this 2 lake system that he could fish in. And he ended up with a 1 lake system because of governmental rules. So if you're out there looking, if you do have the bread and you are trying to build a lake, You need to look into all that stuff real carefully before you go buying property, because I've seen projects. That's not the only project I've seen completely stalled out by the government red tape. As a matter of fact, I would say that the government red tape stalls out 90% of the projects I've ever seen, and 10% of them are the ones that I worked on. It's not an easy thing to build a lake or a pond anymore. So check into that. And, like I said, understand wetland delineation. Oh, you have a nice stream going down your field. You're not building a lake on a high quality stream in this country anymore unless you pay an exorbitant amount of money. Like I said, if you displace 30, hell, that wetland delineation number I gave you is 20 years old. It might not be higher than $30,000 an acre now. I don't know. They might be charging higher. But like I said, you're displacing 10 acres of wetland. It used to be you owe the state of Georgia $300,000. And now you can displace that wetland. And all they do is they set it out some other place. They set wetland up so it can't be can't be destroyed someplace else. It's good in theory, like everything. We're trying. Nothing's perfect. At least we have it in place to try to protect the environment. But money distorts it, as it does everything. I remember they built this Mall of Georgia, this real big. Well, you guys probably know where it is, right off 85 over there. That place was built on a wetland. Go look off the side. Go look to the right side of Mall of Georgia, and look down. There's a river that runs alongside that thing. They built that thing all in floodplain. They changed the floodplain by 30, 40 feet. That ground was lower. There used to be I know because I used to live right by it, and there used to be a hunting club back in there. And it used to be in a valley. And they took a hill down and flattened that land and put that mall right over a wetland. So don't think you can't do it. It just costs money to do it. All right, Midwest, good chatting. Still got 5 folks. Thanks for joining, boys. If you have any questions, I'm not really talking about pond management today, but I'm scrolling back real quick to I think there was a question somewhere, and I don't even know how to operate the deadgum mouse. Like, there is no more like left click or right click. I don't know, man. I'm getting old. Okay, Ken's got a question. I knew there was one up there. Lots of grass / moss in the pond. Drained right before the freeze, 17 degrees. That is cold. Yes, killed all the vegetation. Yes, it did. Do you think this is killed totally, or will it come right back? It's a real good question. It's going to depend on what grass / moss you're talking about. So you shouldn't be getting any filamentous algae is what people usually call moss. If you squeeze the water out of it, like it's kind of stringy, it gets on your hooks, and it's green, kind of slimy. It lives floating or sinking in the water column, so it's sometimes on the bottom, sometimes on the top. You can't really tell what's going on with it. That stuff shouldn't grow in the winter. Not saying it can't, because I just saw some, last week, but that's in Georgia, and it was 67 degrees too. So weather has to do with what drives plant growth. So normally you're not getting any of that kind of stuff in the winter, but as soon as your temperatures go up, you should see plants returning. So to answer your question though, on the vegetation, so on the algae end, no, you're going to deal with algae problems. They're going to be dealt to you. Some ponds are worse than others. I don't even know why. Usually most ponds, if you know what you're doing, it just takes a couple of algae treatments early in the spring, maybe like 2, sometimes 3, if you hit it at the right time, and you'll keep the algae under control all season, and you only needed 2, but that's most of the time, say 75%, 25%, you know, there's a lot more treatments involved. Um, that being said, when your plants get frozen like that, when you draw the water down in the winter, there's actually a term called winter drawdown. It's old school pond management method, but it works good. You'll see big lake managers use it a lot. Like TVA does it a lot. There's a couple lakes, big. You'll see lakes drained halfway down in the wintertime sometimes, right? And there's a bunch of different reasons they do that, but one of those reasons is weed control. Because if you think about it, all right, so if you pull the lake down and expose that dirt and those plants to 17-degree soil, what you do is bust all the seeds that are in that substrate. The seeds get killed. And that's the important part because the plants are already dead anyway. It's wintertime. But by exposing by freezing the soil, you bust up the seeds. And that greatly reduces the amount of aquatic plant growth that comes out of the ground like that seed wise the next season. So that's why you see the DNR guys pull those lakes down every year, because they're reducing their algicide and herbicide rates, amounts, and costs they have to do every year. You'll see them do it on shallow water lakes. The deeper lakes, they usually won't drain down because deeper lakes has a lot more light penetration that the weeds won't be down there because it's too deep for the light to get down there. So a lot of times you'll see this winter drawdown on shallow water lakes where you see drastically higher cost in controlling aquatic vegetation simply because they're shallower. So it's a good management strategy, and it doesn't hurt the fish population. The fish don't eat as much in the wintertime, so they just doesn't mess with them. You can crowd them together and crowd them together. Let's put it a different way. Crowd them together in the summertime. Yeah, you just messed up. You just destroyed your fish population unless it's a real short job. But you pull them down while the bass are feeding and crowd the bass. Yeah, it would be like putting lions in a football stadium with the sheep. When you crowd them in like that, they're done, they're destroyed. And that's the part that dudes don't understand. It's like you got rid of all the habitat, everything was trying to hide it in, you put everything right next to a largemouth bass, everybody's dying. And that disrupts the balance of the fishery. So when you drain that lake is very important. You always want to do it in the winter. So do I think it totally kill it? Yes, I do. Do I think it will come back? Yes, I do. It will just come back less than it would have if you didn't do it, if that makes sense. You'll always have weed plant management issues if you're managing a pond. You're always going to have them, whether it's algae or plants or whatever. Ducks, geese, animals, beavers go from place to place. Turtles go from place to place. Muskrats go from place to place. But your ducks, your geese, your flying birds that go from place to place and are eating seeds of those weeds that we just described. See, all those seeds are distributed in your lake in bird poop. That's how they got there. People don't put that together usually, but that's how the seeds got there. Think about a goose. You've been around geese? What they leave behind? You ever seen 20 geese walk around a yard? Yeah. That always cracks me up too. From the homeowner Karen, we'll give you a call, right? With all that attitude. Yes, is this the lake management company? Yes, ma'am. I have geese and I want you to come remove them. Oh, really? Okay. Where would you like me to remove them to, ma'am? Well, I thought you could take them over. Now, this is a conversation I've had hundreds of times. This is not one or two, okay? I thought you could take them over to and add in whatever lake you live near. Lake Lanier, Lake Toho, Lake of the Ozarks, wherever. Just name any popular large reservoir a few miles down the street from her house. And that's where you're going to go take them to. And I say, yes, ma'am. Okay, well, do you know the technical name of those geese? And usually they say no. Sometimes they say Canada geese. Sometimes they say Canadian geese. I don't care which it is. Canada geese, I think, is technically right. But yes, ma'am. Those birds are from Canada. And they are migratory, which means we can take them back to Canada and they will be at your pond before we could drive back ourselves. You know, they'll go up top 10,000 feet and put it 60 miles an hour all the way back to Georgia, 24 hours straight, and beat us home. There's nowhere you could take a Canada goose to China. I bet it could still come home. So where you want me to take that bird? Shaq's got another one. Says he plans on restocking grass carp and hope they stay ahead of it. And that's a real good idea. Shackelford, we did stock some grass carp in Sugar Hill Outdoors, and I always stock them for that reason. It's being preventative, not reactionary. You know, if we build the pond and don't put them in there, okay. And what did I just describe to you? What do you think? There's not going to be any ducks that fly into your pond ever? Okay, that's being kind of dumb. So without the grass carp in place, you are about to cost yourself a lot of money in treatments, because if the grass carp are there eating it, you're not going to owe a guy like me to come and spray it. And let me explain to you how spraying works. Okay, this is a really, really easy way to explain it. You know how a lawnmower works? Yeah, that's how a sprayer works on a pond boat. Okay, it knocks it back. So you're gonna come and pay me hundreds of dollars an hour to take $20,000 rig out there to put thousands of dollars of chemicals into the environment that does all completely unnecessary because you just didn't stock grass carp. Yeah. So absolutely stock those grass carp. You just reduced, I would say you probably just saved yourself about $20,000 over the next 10 years on average, trying to go a decade spraying and doing that. So smart move, Ken, smart move. Put those fish in there. And then in about 7 years, they're going to get big on you, and their metabolism when they get older, like me, like everybody older, is going to slow down, and they'll be real big, but they won't be eaten, and you'll start seeing weeds growing up off the bottom. That'll be your tip. When you start seeing soft little supple plants that are like, they do like this, and they're just real nice, soft, growing out in the pond, like pond weeds. Usually pond weeds will come up and they'll have like a little leaf at the surface. Sometimes the leaf is big. Around Georgia, the leaf's usually small, but you don't have to be a biologist or even understand all of that to understand, wow, that is a really soft, supple plant that's growing out 3-4 feet out into the bank that I've never seen grow like that before. Okay, so that's perfect carp food, right? It grows off the bottom. Their mouths are tipped down. They're carp. They want to put their head up over something and they want to munch it. And they want it to be they don't want it to be cattails. They don't control cattails. They don't control the filamentous algae, the slime. They don't eat that. They don't like it. But if it's a nice soft plant that they can get up over and they can munch down on like a cow, they love that. So as a pond manager, I know that. You know that. Now, when you go to your pond and you see that soft, supple plant growing out there in the water where you were for years now, it hasn't been growing, your grass carp are slowing down, and maybe you've lost them to predators, eagles or something got them, age got them, otters got them, 7 years got them, and it's time for more. So that's your key. Wow. A plant that looks like should be being controlled by grass carp is not being controlled by grass carp. That's your key to stock some more grass carp. And always, when you have a bass population, get the biggest ones. Get like the 12 inchers. I see guys cheap out, and I'm only going to get the 8 to 10s because they're dollars cheaper, but dollars per fish cheaper. But I have watched 8 to 10 inch grass carp just get smoked by bass, just smoked. You need the bigger ones so they can be fast enough to get away from the bass. At $15, $13, $12 a fish, and you're just watching bass go bang, bang. That's like 12, 24, 30. This is getting expensive. All of a sudden, those $2 golden shiners down at the place down here don't look so bad anymore. I'm gonna have to. I don't like wearing both my ear things. It sounds funny, but I'm gonna have to do it. It's messing with me. I hear you, Josh, man. He says, making a difference is the only thing that matters. And I agree with that, man. I'm just, what for me is like 30 years of watching people just make mistake after mistake after mistake, even though they asked you. That's the part that, like, I can't even look at Facebook. I can't even talk like this either. I need to do it like this. I can't even look at Facebook or any of those pond management pages or groups or whatever those things are called. It's like, you should get in there and you should type in there. I've tried that before years ago when Facebook first came out. All those groups have been there a long time. And that's exactly what I was talking about when I started this thing. Going to Georgia doesn't matter, and majoring in fisheries biology doesn't matter in the comment section on Facebook. You know what else doesn't matter? Starting a company and running a lake management business for 30 years. That doesn't matter either, right? You've relegated yourself to, like, everybody's given their opinions in the comment section on Facebook. I'm not giving you an opinion. I'm telling you, this is me telling you how it is. In the real world, when you do this to make money to pay your mortgage, there's a big damn difference between me and that. And I don't do that. Not anymore. Christopher says it's great information. He's learned so much following the page. I appreciate it, man. I really do. That's another thing I've learned. I can sit here and tell you how to do my job till I'm blue in the face. You could have a pond in your backyard. I say, you know what it's like, man? You know that experiment in class? You ever do that experiment or see that experiment done where they write down something on a piece of paper and they let the first kid read it, and then he turns around, tells the next kid, turns around, tells the next kid, and by the time it gets to the end of the class, the original message and what ends up over there is not the same thing? Okay, well, let me show you how that works in pond management. You can literally pay me to tell you what to do. I'll write it in a report and you won't do it. You won't do it. You'll go on the internet. You'll read something else. I don't know why we won't do it, but people won't listen. So I've been doing this for 4 years. I've told the internet how to manage ponds for 4 years. And I'd say there's maybe 100 dudes that's probably helped a whole lot because they're dealing with their own pond management stuff, and the rest of the people just ain't even listening. It's just another entertainment thing or something, for them to look at. But no, Ken, I'm glad you're restocking your pond though, man. It's just based on recommendations. He's restocking in the spring. Yeah, man. What you can do, Corey, what's up, my friend? Welcome aboard. how would I do that? If it depends on the timing of the drain and how all this goes down as to how you stock it. All right, Ken. Let's say the pond was drained last year. Okay, so it was drained dry and the dam was, say, repaired or whatever it is you have to do, and now we're restocking the fish population. I would have restocked, but probably the book will tell you 500 bluegill per acre. I generally like to go with 1,000, but I also did this for a living, got a little bit better results with 1,000, and also it's better to sell 1,000 fish than it is to sell 500. But I didn't ever go over 1,000. I mean, you could stock 10,000 per acre, but going higher than that doesn't do you any good. Like there's only so much space in the pond, right? So don't go over 1,000. But if budget is an issue, you can cut it back to 500. So that's what I mean by if I've got the budget, 1,000. Like if it's a super rich dude and he doesn't care, 1,000 per acres going in there. And then, so if it's drained, I would have done that in the fall. I'd have stocked those fish in the fall. I'd wait for the bass to become available this spring and stock the 2-inch bass as soon as they're available down at the fish hatchery, which is usually in Georgia. It's usually around the end of May, maybe beginning of June. But of course, it depends on the weather. If we get a super warm front in this spring, they might come available sooner than that. But I want the bluegill population in there and established and reproducing. So what does that mean? I need bluegill over 3 inches because bluegill over 3 inches are big enough to spawn. If I have the time, I can just buy small 1 to 2s or 1 to 3 inch bluegill and grow them out. If I don't have the time, I just buy 4 to 6 inch bluegill and put them in there. So out of that 1,000 fish, maybe 800 of them will be the small bluegill and 200 per acre will be the 4 to 6 inch, the bigger bluegill, or they could be 3 to 5s too. I don't care, whatever the hatchery has, but they got to be bigger than 3 so they're big enough to spawn. So now I got a couple hundred bluegill in there spawning for me as soon as the weather gets right. And this is why that's important, because even a little 3-inch bluegill like that can lay 10,000 eggs. So with no bass in the pond and you get a couple hundred bluegill to spawn, you just stocked it with 1,000,000 fish, literally like 10,000 per fish. And you just stocked how many female bluegill? 1,000 per acre, 500. There's 500 female bluegill per acre, all laying. No, well, I'm sorry, it would have to be the bigger fish. So it would be 100 female bluegill per acre. If we stock 200 4 to 6s, we would roughly have 100 female bluegill that would all spawn 10,000 eggs in on the next spawn. See how that works? You need that spawn there for when you stock those 2-inch bass. That's what they're going to be eating. Don't do it. Don't think in your minds what everybody else does too. Okay, well, instead of getting the 2-inch bass, I'm going to go get the 8-inch bass and I'm going to spend the extra money. Don't do it, because the 8-inch bass is way older than the 2-inch bass. It's been at the fish hatchery. It has to do with how much it's been fed. And I don't know, I could go 2 hours about that. Just don't do it. You won't, it's not worth the money. You'll spend way more money for bass that grow slower. I can summarize that. Get the 2-inch bass, put them in there with the bluegill. When the spawn, when that whole thing I described is set up right, and you're good to go. We already talked about the grass carp. Add those. Add some red ear too. They control parasites because they control snails, and they also are putting that snail. They're taking snail protein and changing that into protein that bass can eat, and that's an important source of protein for bass that normally wouldn't be there if you don't have red ear. So throw just 50 per acre on the red ear. You don't need many. I'm trying to think if I can think of anything else. Nothing's coming to mind on that, but like I said, every one of these situations is different. And like any job, it takes a lot of experience. It takes a lot of years working um, to have put yourself in all those experiences, and still, there's not a time I don't go do a job, even just doing consulting like this on fisheries, that I don't run into something new or different, you know? And that's the part experience gives you the ability to think in the field because you have experience. Ken saying he drained it this year. He's roting on the puddles in 2 weeks, and then you need advice on stocking. Okay. Um, actually, I would. It just depends. Like 2 weeks. This is where's the pond at? I need to know that, Ken. I'll continue with that thought though. If I did it that way, oh, it's in Dublin. Okay, it's good. It's in Georgia. I'm familiar. Um, if I did it that way, I would definitely do the 1,000 bluegill per acre. If you're trying to get, what I'm thinking about is, are you trying to get the you want the bluegill in before the bass, and you generally want them in 6 months before the bass. So that's now, or a couple months ago at this point. If you were going to do that this year, like I would prefer you had a spawning bluegill population in the pond this winter right now, right? Since you don't, that's okay. Just stock the 1,000 per acre and make sure you get the 4 to 6s in there. It's absolutely essential that you have some reproduction coming in for those bass to eat. And I might even go spend a little bit more money on you can on the 4 to 6s. Like if you could split it in half and do half of them like 1 to 3 inch bluegill and half of them spawnable size, I would do that and then put the bass in this spring as soon as they become available. Um, I've done it that way before and it works pretty well. I do prefer to have that gap. Like at Sugar Hill, we had a weird thing at Sugar Hill. The first round of F1 bass that we stocked didn't survive, so we had to restock the bass. And at that time, that's when the fish hatchery came available in South Georgia, and I was able to get the fish population genetics program going that way. So it was really a miracle that those initial bass that we stocked didn't survive, because I was basically stocking the pond the way I'm describing it to you. He wanted it done quickly, but we had some water. I think it was water chemistry issues because we've had a little bit of fry survival issue. I've noticed around a little bit, and I think it's in the lime, but I'm not sure. Again, these are things we work through in individual places. But since we did it the right way, and we went and we followed the right steps, yeah, we stocked the bass. Yeah, they didn't take. Yeah, that happens sometimes, and yeah, we fixed it because we did the process correctly, right? If you do the process correctly, it's no problem, no big deal. We lost a year of growth on bass. To be able to hold a bass up, go, this bass grew. We should be in our third year, at the end of our third year right now, instead of the end of our second. Big deal. That's nothing. And I got a way cooler genetics project out of it than just holding up oh, look, I grew a 4-pound bass in 2 years. Yeah, you should be doing that. That's my job. The bass should be growing like freaks. What I like about this job is the management of the reproduction of these fish that we stocked is completely different than like a unicorn compared to everything that I've ever worked on in 30 years. And that's very interesting to me. And most of y'all too, but very interesting to me. Yeah, Corey, man. I was up in Rome. Corey's noticing that's a good call on the Rome Braves, bro. That's their new Emperor Penguin. You like that? That's sweet hat, dude. I thought they did a great job. It's like, I am getting that. Yeah, Ken, you can play it safe that way too. If you, and that's probably what you'll end up doing too. Like you might run into some situations. I'm just like I said, speaking from experience. Maybe the puddles don't get treated. Maybe it rains. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. And I mean puddles too, bro. I don't want ankle deep water. I don't, as much water out of that place as you can get out of it. Like down to an acre, 3 feet deep, that ain't drained. And I've seen guys, that's where guys make the biggest mistake right there. It's like, well, it's a 9 acre pond. We got it down to a half an acre, only 2 feet deep. That ain't enough. Rotenone, like they can get away from it. You won't believe how like good fish are at getting away from rotenone. If you try to rotenone a pond that's full, you ain't doing crap. You won't, you'll kill fish. There'll be a bunch of dead fish everywhere, but you ain't killing them all. And that's the problem because that's the biggest problem because if you don't get the balance of the fish population, the numbers of bass and the numbers of bluegill you stock, that's what we're setting when we drain it and restock it. If there's bass already in there and you're trying to do this process, you're dead before you got to do it again. You got to pull a plug and do it again. It ain't going to work. You're going to get terrible results if you don't do it right. Awful results if you don't do it right. Worse than what you've got if you don't do it right. If you do it right, world-class fishing. If you do that though, throw your bluegill in there this year and just let them go get all smalls. You don't need the big ones at all. If you're going to wait for a full year to stock the bass, just get the cheapest ones. They're going to do plenty of growing in your pond. You don't have to, pay the fish hatchery to grow your fish for you. Just go buy the 1 to 2s. Get them the cheapest fish as possible. Throw them, let them go. And I would do, if you did it that way, I would do bluegill, red ear, and grass carp all at the same time. Save you trips, don't do them apart. And just let that go until next, spring when the bass come available and put them in there and you're rolling, bro. Midwest, you're back. Yeah, man, we're still going. We actually started getting some actual pond questions. So I've been running my mouth. And I'm trying to read this comment. Sorry, they've got these icon things that block, like this heart and smiley face, and it blocks my. Yeah, you got a big putt. Okay, Ken saying he's got a big puddle. Yeah, everybody does, bro. All right, so you can go rent big pumps and just pump it out once you get it down. Or it depends on how you're pulling it down. If it's a siphon drains won't drain a pond anywhere near dry. The air will act like that. It'll spin down and break the siphon before it ever drains the pond. If you're off the bottom, if you have a bottom drain, those are the best, but they also can be clogged and covered and give a lot of problems that way too. But yeah, the big puddle is an issue. And if you have the big puddle, let's just say I've had to treat ponds like there's nothing you can do except treat the big puddle, right? So now I would recommend, I don't know what kind of rotenone you got, but if you've got the powdered stuff, get a respirator and don't take it off because you're going to have to mix that powder and you're going to have to mess with that stuff and you do not want to be breathing rotenone. If you get the liquid rotenone, that's better. Wear your gloves, always wear your gloves and all safety, protection like that. But you got to understand, spray the entire surface of the pond, use a trolling motor to stir it and spray it, but don't try to stir up the muck. And that's the problem. Because I mean, even now a kayak would probably be something good to work out of, something lightweight. You could, get in there and get out and drift around and spread that out. But spray it as evenly as possible. And I would spray it a couple days, spray it a day, the fish will die, spray it the next day. Your fish will still come up for a few days. Let the wind and wave action blow that stuff around. treat it 2 days in a row, maybe 3 days in a row, kind of depending on what you're seeing visually. Usually the first initial, if you're under a foot of water and under, you're just treating puddles, they just die. You just zap them. But if you've got that big puddle, I don't know how, but there'll be gaps in it. There'll be a place that the fish can get that stuff won't get to them. And they'll just sit there and live through it and then screw you up on the restock. So just something to think about. Just a little experience to think about. Sore elbows. Out of Oconee is coming to do it. Oh, I'm sure he does, man. I don't know. I don't know who you got, but I'm sure he's good at it. And if you need a recommendation, I would just use Owen and Williams Fish Hatchery, which is just south of you in Hawkinsville. And if you need another biologist or you need somebody else, or if that guy doesn't, if that guy goes out of business or whatever, you need to talk to Brian Simmons at Owen and Williams. He's the best fisheries biologist on ponds I've ever seen. He worked at Owen and Williams since he was 15. Then he went to Georgia and got a fish degree, and then he went back to Owen and Williams, and now he owns the place. And like I said, if you know a better pond man than Brian Simmons, I don't. He's better than me, smarter than me, got more experience than me. If I was hiring somebody to electrofish a pond or help me, he would definitely be on the list. He's a real smart dude, so maybe that'll help you out. How does tannic acid affect the pond? Got a lot of down trees. Sure, Ken, it's no problem, man. Tannic acid is weird. We've got it here in Florida. It's for anybody who doesn't know what that means. You know how the Coke or the water looks like Coca-Cola or tea or coffee. It's got that dark color to it. That's tannins, tannic acid. So, it doesn't. It's weird. In Florida, where I'm at, it's a result of cypress trees, these big cypress swamps. What happens is the lakes will get clear in the wintertime. And then when the spring and the weather warms up, the water floods this place, goes back into the swamps and everything. And as it, fills up and then rain comes down, it draws the tannins into the lake. And the lake goes from really, really clear to that dark tea color. This year it did it in about May. So it was like super clear, like looking into vodka, and then it's like black, like looking into Coca-Cola. It's weird. I guess we can talk about how that would affect and how anything that does that, or another thing that could do that, right, are those pond dyes. You've seen those blue dyes or green dyes that people put in the water? That can do that too. Okay, that's an unnatural source of that, but it's a suspended particle blocking light in the water, right? I've personally witnessed this about a dozen times where somebody like me managing the pond for boosted fisheries and, fish production and, what we talk about here, property be sold and the person that moves in doesn't do any of that stuff and puts dye in that pond. And then usually my card would be laying around, and after a couple of years, usually they would call because the fish look horrid. So why did that happen? Okay, so in those ponds, and tannic acid's a really light version of this, but in those ponds with the dye is a better example. Okay, so we went from a situation where the fish were being fed daily, and I had them up here. I had like 400 pounds of fish per acre. Okay. The new people, the property sold, the new people came in. They didn't continue with the feeding program or the fertilization program or whatever I had going that boosted the fish population up to that level. They quit it. We're not doing that. Okay. So you just cut it back to natural Georgia levels, which is about 100 pounds of fish per acre. Okay. So 400 to 100. What do you think the fish are going to start looking like after about a year when you've got 4 times as many in the same pond? They don't look good at all, right? And what's happening is not only did you, so you stopped the feeding program, which changed the energy going into the pond. The light that comes into the water is picked up by a plant called phytoplankton. That light and carbon dioxide goes into photosynthesis, creates oxygen, but that phytoplankton is also the base of the food chain. Zooplankton eats the phytoplankton, aquatic insects and eat the zooplankton. Larval fish eat the aquatic insects and the zooplankton, and big fish eat the small fish. It creates an entire food web. So when you put that dye in there, right? So I'm trying to use this screen. Like, let's pretend this is the surface of the pond. Everything's working in backwards. This is the surface of the pond. This is the bottom of the pond. And normally there was light penetration down to right here, full of, say that's 8 feet deep and full of nice green water with plankton right here, nice and full of that. Well, then we changed that and we put dye in there. And now that light penetration only goes this deep. Right. So we just took away this much space that the plankton could be living in, and we made this much space. Okay. But not only that, we made it harder for the light to penetrate even in this much space. So we've reduced the phytoplankton population is the best way to put that. Okay. We had 200 billion phytoplankton. Now we got 1 million phytoplankton. Okay. Pay no attention to the numbers, just say significantly reduced number. When you significantly reduce the amount of plankton in the pond, you significantly reduce the amount of pounds of fish the pond can hold. There's a direct correlation there. And the measurement's called chlorophyll A. So that is kind of along the line. Now, tannic acid works that way, but not at that extreme level. Like, the water's going to turn brown. Yes, there's going to be a slight reduction in light penetration, this, that, the other. That's all natural here, right? So it's kind of different than using it as a pond with the pond dye example, but there's also a little bit of that going on there, if that makes sense. As far as tannic acid messing up a fish population, nah. You're going to mess your fish population up either overstocking your bass or putting the wrong species of fish in the pond. That's where you're going to mess up. When fishing gets bad, it has to do with the combinations of fish in the pond, not the habitat of the pond. Dudes don't get that either. Don't ever listen to me about that. I might as well be talking to nobody. They don't listen. When your fish I'll say it again. When your fishing is bad, it has to do with the dynamics of the fish population, not how many sticks are stuck down in the mud. Not how many rocks are there, not how much weeds are there, nothing like that. You're way off base if you think your stunted bass population is going to get fixed by you sinking brush piles. That's never going to happen. And I'm positive that's never going to happen because I've watched dudes do it for 30 years and it's never worked for them. I've watched them ignore my advice, not keep bass, sink brush piles, and their bass are all still skinny as crap because they don't listen. I could summarize my entire fisheries consulting career up to they don't listen. That's why I'm so happy to have Sugar Hill Outdoors, where I can do what I'm supposed to do, what the book says to do, what I've learned to do from the book with my field experience. And I don't have anybody in the way. Well, let's put this in there. Let's put that in there. Why don't we put this in there? This guy on the internet said we should put that in there. No, we're not doing any of those things. We've got bluegill and we've got bass and we've got a feeder, and I am blowing your doors completely off with those three things. I'm growing 4-pound bass in 2 years. So for you negative people that want to come on here and talk about that, go do better than that, then come back here and talk to me. How about them apples? You like apples? Ken says he's going to contact my man Brian. Tell him I said hello. 54 Philip Cheek, my man, my relative weight ninja coming out of South Carolina. Big Philip Cheek fan. Y'all need to follow him if you don't. 54% relative weight bass from a couple years ago from a pond, dyed green. Wow, Philip, you broke my record. I have never even calculated a 54% relative weight bass, I don't think. It was down there close to that, but I don't think it was down that low. That bass should be dead. That is a testament to how tough bass are. He had nothing to eat, and the dye was crushing his forage base at a level that he couldn't even comprehend, man. He had nothing to eat due to chemistry. Now, those dyes will work good in your small ponds where you're like a fountain pond, like in front of a neighborhood. It's just got like a water feature kind of pond. I'm fine with them in there. That's what that stuff is for. But when it starts starving the fish population out like that at 54% relative weights, dude, that's starvation. That's cruelty to animals. That's going down that path. Okay, yeah, I remember that. Ken said he's gonna try and listen this time. I hear you, bro, man. I hear you. Trying's all we can do, my friend. That's all I'm doing is trying. All I'm doing is trying to tell people the things that I learned in college and the truth that I learned in the field. That's the truth. I learned the truth in college. This is the truth. And I'm not making it up. I'm not lying to anyone. I'm not even selling anything. And that's calculated because I've been on Facebook. I've been down this road. I tried to do all this before. Man, that negativity was more than I could handle. Way more than I could handle. And you know what changed the world for me? Podcasts. Thank you, podcast. Go check out Tackle Talk if you haven't heard it, man. The podcast was on last week. Had a bunch of downloads, and it's doing real good. About my 5th time on Tackle Talk podcast. I've lost count on how many podcasts I've been on, man. Maybe like 25 or so. I don't even know. When I started getting podcasts and I started getting a little bit of social, whatever that is, numbers, a bigger number next to your name than 104, when it's 14,000, all of a sudden it starts getting a little less quiet. And that's the problem with YouTube right now. I guarantee it'll happen on YouTube too. There's only like 6,000 people following YouTube. So the smack talk is coming. Wait till there's 60. It'll end just because of the number. Like, I don't understand. Why does that happen with that number? Why doesn't that happen with, hey, I've got a college degree and 30 years experience in this field? Okay, we should have a reduction in the smack talk right there. We don't. That will ratchet that right up. Don't ask me, man. I just work here. Yes, Philip's talking about that fish. I remember that. Midwest says the Chicago still drives the main river green. Sorry, boys. And hit the button quicker. Now, I hear you on that, Midwest, but also, too, I don't have much of a problem with that. One, not same forage, not same food chain, not same not the same type of system. So it's not completely hurting The river, dyeing the river green for a day is not the same thing as dyeing the pond green forever. But I hear what you're saying, because we're in the ballpark. You know what I mean? We're in the ballpark. But just what I know about it, like if I see the river green, like if I got two choices right now, and here's my two choices: stop dyeing the rivers for St. Patrick's Day, or stop dyeing all the ponds and give a crap about the health of fish. I'd go for B. Stop dyeing all the ponds and give a crap about the health of fish. Because that's the part that drives me the hardest. The 54% relative weight bass that the idiots are holding up going, oh, you're just a little spawned out. Shut up, you moron. That's the part I'm tired of. And that I'd say if I have any kind of little jealousy or little, you see that guy on YouTube right now with 1 million followers who's still saying that, yeah, I'm coming for you, son. You take what you receive in this world. I can say that with 100% accuracy from a self-employed person's perspective. You're going to take your respect from people, not forcefully, but you're going to take it. I take mine by working every day. I come on here every day, or every week, every day on Instagram. You're going to take your respect. It doesn't even matter what business you're in, even here, even if it's not your business. You're going to go fish. You're going to get people to follow your fishing page. You know what you're going to do? You're going to go take that respect by going out in the world, catching nice fish and holding it up. It's taking it. That's what I mean by that. Midwest says the dye does completely dissipate. Yeah, and you got flow there too, so it just flows out to the lake, and it does go away over time. But again, dude, I mean, if I'm the mayor of the city, you're not dyeing the river anymore. We're allocating those funds to I don't know, something that matters. I'm with you on that one. All right. Let me go back through, make sure we didn't miss any questions. I think mostly it was just getting Ken straightened out on his stocking project. That was cool, Ken. I appreciate you coming in on that, man. Again, this is how it works. And now anybody who watches this video and is draining a pond, will be straight. And let's check it. Let's do a follower count. And then I'm going to get off. I'm getting hungry for lunch. What are we up to now, boys? 6,582 on YouTube. That is awesome. And it is flying up because it was just about 3 months ago. It was at 1,000. So sincerely appreciate everybody who shares this stuff and follows with this stuff and gets anything out of it, really. If I can help you in a positive way in any way, I'll do my best to do that. Chris says he's got a pond guy whose DNR all previous research is wrong, and the blue dye actually stimulates the growth of phytoplankton. I'm going to disagree with him, Chris. I think your pond guy has vested interest in pond dye. That's what I think. I have never seen that happen. And like I said, I've seen a few dozen ponds that were being fertilized, which is stimulating. In Georgia, we can stimulate that plankton bloom unnaturally with fertilizer, pond fertilizers. Mossy Oak, Perfect Pond Plus is what I like. But, or you can use a feeder. There's a couple different ways you can go about boosting it like that. But no, that's not how that works. There's no nitrogen, there's no phosphorus, that's not energy, and that's not even how science works. So yeah. But again, too, there you go. I have seen those guys come and go in this business for years because, okay, I just gave Ken some advice. I told him that if it was me, and based on what I've done, I would stock between 500 and 1,000 bluegill per acre, leaning towards 1,000 if he's got the money. All right. I've seen guys recommend 50,000 bluegill per acre. Oh my God, how much is that? Well, you can come down 20,000 bluegill per acre when it needs 500 to 1,000. You see where I'm going with this? I stock 40 bass per acre in Sugar Hill Outdoors. I've seen guys with biology degrees that work at fish hatcheries that recommend 1,000 bass per acre. Okay, that's the business. If you can sell a man 1,000, he's in the fish sales business. And man, I don't understand why there's something about guys like that who say something to people and they believe them and not me. And I don't know why. That's the part. Oof, if I could figure that one out, I'd be rolling in followers. He also says copper-nosed bluegill dehybridize after a couple years and become regular bluegill. Copper-nosed bluegill are regular bluegill. They don't even grow that differently. They just eat feed a little bit better. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. There's different strains of bluegill. I think it's like 6 of them, 5 or 6 of them. Copper-nose is one of them. It's a southern strain. They eat feed a little bit better, and that's why they got popular. Like, there's just something in their genetics that makes them just like, if you've watched any of my videos at the feeder, you'll see those are copper-nosed bluegill. They eat the crap out of feed. And if you don't have copper-nosed bluegill and you don't have a pond that looks like my feeder, it's genetics. Got it? Okay. Nothing wrong with your pond. If you can't stock copper-nosed bluegill, can't get them, it's okay. It's okay. Because the rule is, if you've got the regular bluegill that aren't eating everything you throw in 28 seconds, no matter how much you throw, the feeding window works easier. You can feed in about 20 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes. You want that food cleaned up. And that's what happens when you have a regular feeder and regular bluegill. The feed goes out, the bluegill begin to feed. They don't eat it like they've been taking bong rips. They just eat regular, and it takes them a few minutes to eat on a regular bluegill. So you just give them 20 minutes, whatever they eat in 20 minutes or so, you're good to go. This is the kind of crap I'm talking about, though, man. That's why I'm on here. He can go do what he wants to do. I'll do what I want to do. I'll do what I do. He does what he does, and whatever. He'll probably be a millionaire, and I'll still be here doing nothing. Whatever. Whatever. I don't have 6 acres. Sorry, I need to talk. I'm trying to read 3 different things, and I'm not talking, and that makes an awkward, dead silence. Which is why when you do podcasts, I guess it's better to have a second dude so he can be doing all this. Guys, bear with me. Some more people on eventually. Ken's going with 6 acres of water on 5,000 brim, or 6,000 if needed. Yeah, you'll get away with that, dude. 5K on just mix up your sizes, like I said. And if it's just between 500 and 1,000, your budget comes out to, if your budget comes out to 500, comes out to 500, comes out to 750 is fine. 1,000's fine. I'm just saying, once you get to that 1,000 fish per acre number, don't stop more. You're just wasting money, right? You're not going to get anything more for your money by stocking 20,000 fish than by stocking 1,000 fish. And it's counterintuitive, I know, but it's just how it is. Those fish won't live long enough to be foraged for the bass. You have a limited amount of space in the pond. So we're trying to fill that limited space up. But once you go past it, it's just like a glass of water. Once you go past the top, that's just death. You won't see the dead fish floating everywhere. Turtles will clean them up and all that crap. But it'd be just like trying to overfill a glass by stocking 20,000 bluegill per acre. Like, you're just dumping water. It's just going to waste. Oop, Stephen Poole. I don't want to miss you. Almost missed you. He's got bluegill and channels. Okay. Had an otter in the pond. Oh, yeah. What are the odds that the otter cleaned out all his channel cats? Well, let's go back to real world situations. Stephen, we had an aquaculture class at the University of Georgia, and the first year I took that class, I did that class very similar to the way I did the pond management class with the electrofishing boat. I'd go feed the fish and volunteer for the classes, even though I wasn't taking them. So I had a couple years experience feeding the aquaculture, the channel catfish we grew for our aquaculture class. And one year, the first year I was there, we grew 3,000 channel cats to a pound in a third of an acre, and we had a killer fish fry. And all special needs kids came down and fished, and we cleaned the fish, and everybody had a good day. And the second year, an otters came in from the river and got to the pond. And instead of having 3,000 1-pound catfish, we had 3 catfish. So yeah. And now in that situation, it was interesting too, because it was aquaculture situation. Like, we're growing as many catfish as we can in a third of an acre, right? So that's different than a regular pond. But let's still do that to yours, even though, you know what I'm saying? Like, an otter's like a cat. It'll kill something just to kill it. It doesn't necessarily just kill it. Oh, I'm gonna go eat some food and then not eat. Now, an otter will go in there and just kill your fish. This is what they did to us. They killed so many catfish at night. They would get the catfish, they'd kill it, they'd take it up there to eat about half of it, puke, go back, catch another one, drag it back up on the bank, eat about half of it, puke, and just kept this process going. And the only reason I know that is because we had wildlife biologists there that could identify the scat, could identify the vomit, could identify what was going on exactly. I never would have been able to figure out what was going on. I was like, what the hell are all the catfish doing on the bank? Half eat. That was what it was. So the answer to your question is absolutely yes. That otter will waste your pond for no good reason than just because. And I would say maybe you hopefully you misidentified him and it was a muskrat. Hopefully. Muskrats are no good either, because you don't want them on the dam. They'll put holes in a dam, and then that'll cost you $158 trillion. Old Ratatouille will mess your junk up. One more scroll, boys. We're going on 2 hours. That's like a full day's work. It's only $1 an hour. All right, gentlemen. I don't see anything else coming through, but thank you for joining and hanging with me, talking with me, asking questions. And I will be back. Same bat time, same bat channel. Let's plan for next Sunday at noon. I think that's when we started this one. And if you guys have any requests for times or whatever, I could try to just sort around, make something available. I'm just trying to stay out of everybody else's way. I don't want my stuff to step on Alex Rudd or Debo or any of the other dudes that I'm working with that, that I've been on podcasts with, Big Bass Dreams, anybody. I don't care. Anybody's cool with the pages, Ben Milliken. Let me name drop some more. No, I'm just saying I don't want to interfere with their flow. And most of what I got is going to be here is going to be long-term stuff that guys are going to have to go back and watch probably a couple of times on these lives. So I do that strategically. If you get interested in it, that drives up the part of the money that really counts for getting paid on YouTube, and that's watching that longer format stuff. And the lives count as longer format. The shorts don't count in the same way. They pay you for shorts, but it's chump change. It's the live videos and these live. I'm sorry, it's the long format videos and these live talks that get paid the best. And since I'm not a video editor, that is why we are here, working on the editing though. 52.6%. Oh, just terrible, Philip. Terrible. There's a perfect example, though. There's some reel from the field right there. My man Cheek's fishing in a dyed pond and has the lowest relative weight bass I've personally ever seen. Don't see how that was stimulating a plankton bloom. He sent me a link. Yeah, see, I would love to be able to. I'm going to have to go more YouTube diving. Although I did see this. I started this podcast messing up with the share a screen thing right here. So that to me is new. I haven't seen that here before. And I would really love to be able to share the screen so we can put pictures of these fish up and then start looking at them, because it's really hard to tell the difference between like if I've got a bass that's 102% relative weight, I am really happy. If I've got a bass that's 90% relative weight, I am not happy at all. And you can't look at that and see it. A lot of times you have to measure that. Like you can hold both those fish up like 100% relative weight and a 90% relative weight and say, look at them. And sometimes, a lot of times you'll mess that up and be like, well, that one looks a little bigger. And it's not, that one looks fine and it's not fine. And well, I mean, that's another reason why we're here. So we can teach people, look, this is what bass should weigh. And if you learn to measure it like Philip, especially, man, you get a lot of insight out of that. It doesn't make you a worse fisherman. Hey, thanks for watching today, Drew. I appreciate you, man. All right, excuse me. We just went past the 2-hour mark. I'm calling it before I get sidetracked and run my mouth another hour. Next Sunday at lunch, boys. Thank you. Appreciate you.